The clock showed 2:17 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. I was sitting in my office on the 82nd floor of the Meridian Tower, the building I had designed and developed over the past decade. The air conditioning hummed quietly, and through the window I could see the harbor stretching out toward the horizon. My phone vibrated with a security alert. It wasn't from the main building system, but from the luxury boutique on the ground floor, one of the high-end tenants I had personally approved. I opened the app. The camera feed loaded immediately. There was my mother-in-law, Patricia, standing at the jewelry counter. She was holding my platinum card, the one with the $50,000 limit. Next to her stood a woman I recognized from David's office events. Her name was Ashley. She was pointing at a bracelet behind the glass, laughing. Patricia leaned in closer to her, and the audio came through clear. "Don't worry about Rebecca," Patricia said, her voice light and amused. "She just handles the building paperwork. My son actually runs everything. He lets her organize files so she feels useful." I didn't move. I just sat there, looking at the screen. Then I picked up my tablet and opened the master control application for Meridian Tower. My finger hovered over the access management tab for maybe 2 seconds. Then I tapped it. I want to be clear about something. I didn't build this building by accident. I didn't inherit money or marry into it. I started as a junior architect 15 years ago, worked 70-hour weeks, saved aggressively, and took calculated risks. By 32, I had enough capital and credibility to break ground on Meridian Tower. It took 4 years to complete. During construction, I personally coded the building management software because I didn't trust third-party systems with that level of control. David came into my life during the final phase of construction. I met him at a charity gala. He was charming, well-dressed, and easy to be around. He didn't challenge me. He didn't compete with me. He fit into my life without friction, and at the time, that felt like exactly what I needed. I was exhausted from years of fighting for respect in boardrooms full of men who assumed I was someone's assistant. I wanted to come home to peace, not another power struggle. So I hired him. I didn't think of it that way at the time, but that's what it was. I gave him a position at my firm, a title that sounded impressive but required almost no real work. I paid him a monthly stipend of $15,000. In exchange, he attended events with me, made me look balanced and normal, and kept his mother from asking too many questions about why a successful woman in her 30s was still single. Patricia was part of the package. She loved the idea of her son being connected to wealth and success, even if she didn't fully understand where it came from. I tolerated her because she made the arrangement feel legitimate. She gave me cover. People stopped whispering about whether I was too focused on work, too cold, too alone. "At least she has a family," they would say. It worked. For 3 years, it worked. I looked back at the screen. Patricia was signing the receipt now. Ashley was holding a shopping bag, smiling. They walked toward the exit together, heads close, still talking. I switched to another camera angle and watched them get into Patricia's car, the one I had leased for her last year. I closed the app and set my phone face down on the desk. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up the financial accounts. Joint checking, joint savings, the corporate card Patricia had been using. I didn't freeze them. I initiated a fraud alert protocol, the kind reserved for suspected identity theft. Every card tied to those accounts would be flagged and declined immediately. Then I opened the building's vehicle management system. David's car, a leased Mercedes under my company's fleet account, was parked in the executive garage. I sent a message to the head of security. "Vehicle registered to David Chen is no longer authorized. Have it towed to the impound lot. Do not release without my written approval." I sat back in my chair. My hands were steady. My breathing was calm. I wasn't angry. I was solving a problem. The phone on my desk started ringing. Patricia. I let it ring 4 times before I answered. "Rebecca," she said, her voice tight. "The card isn't working. I'm standing in the parking lot and it says declined. You need to call the bank right now and fix this." "I didn't call the bank," I said. "I flagged the account." There was silence on the other end. "You what?" "I flagged it for fraudulent activity. I said. The system locked everything automatically. This is ridiculous, Patricia snapped. I was using that card for something important. You're going to embarrass this family over a billing error. It's not an error. Then what is it? A decision, I said. Then I ended the call. I set the phone down and turned my chair toward the window. The city stretched out below me, grid lines of streets and buildings, everything organized and intentional. I had spent years learning how to read a city like this, how to see the structure beneath the surface. I applied the same logic to people. 3 years ago, when I married David, I knew exactly what I was doing. I wasn't naive. I wasn't swept away by romance. I was making a strategic choice. I looked at my life and saw a gap, a vulnerability. I was a woman running a development firm in an industry that still questioned whether women belonged in leadership. I had the talent, the capital, and the vision, but I was constantly defending my legitimacy. A husband fixed that. Not because I needed one, but because other people expected one. It smoothed over the questions. It made me easier to categorize. David was attractive enough to be impressive at events, but not so ambitious that he would challenge my authority. He was comfortable being secondary, and his mother, Patricia, provided the family structure that made everything look traditional and stable. I paid for that stability. $15,000 a month, a leased car, a penthouse apartment, memberships to clubs he never used. I built a life for him, and in return, he played the role I needed him to play. It was a transaction, and I thought we both understood that. But I had made a miscalculation. I assumed that paying someone well would make them loyal. I assumed that gratitude would be the foundation. Instead, the money became expected. Then it became insufficient. Then it became something they believed they were entitled to, not something they were receiving as compensation. David stopped seeing himself as someone I employed. He started seeing himself as someone I was lucky to have. And Patricia reinforced that delusion every chance she got. She told people her son ran the company. She told people I was just the operations manager. She rewrote the entire story to protect her own ego, and David let her do it because it made him feel important. I had enabled it. I had allowed them to live in that fantasy because it didn't interfere with my work. I didn't correct people at parties. I didn't argue when Patricia introduced David as the developer. I let them believe what they wanted to believe because I thought it didn't matter. But it did matter. Because when people believe a lie long enough, they start to act on it. And that's what I saw on the security footage. Patricia and Ashley planning my removal, talking about selling jewelry they thought was valuable, talking about redecorating my apartment, talking about pushing me out of my own life. I opened a desk drawer and pulled out a file folder. It was labeled Chen Family Background. Inside were the results of a private investigation I had commissioned before the wedding. I hadn't looked at it in over a year, but I remembered the contents. The Chen family had money once. Patricia's father had been successful in real estate during the boom years, but by the time David was in college, it was gone. Bad investments, poor management, and Patricia's spending habits had drained everything. She had pawned family heirlooms in 2001 to pay off credit card debt. The engagement ring she claimed had been in the family for generations was bought at an estate sale in 2008. When I found out, I didn't confront her. I didn't embarrass David. Instead, I quietly commissioned replicas of the jewelry she said she still had, high-quality fakes that looked convincing enough to pass casual inspection. I arranged for them to reappear in a storage unit she had forgotten about. I let her have her story. I let her save face. And now she was planning to sell those replicas to fund a legal battle against me. My phone buzzed. A text from David. "What's going on? Security just towed my car. And Mom says you froze the accounts? Call me right now." I didn't respond. I opened the building's elevator access system instead. David and Patricia both had biometric clearance for the private elevator that went directly to the penthouse. It was a perk I had given them, a convenience that made them feel special. I pulled up their access profiles and changed their status from resident to guest pending approval. Then I drafted an email. The subject line read, "Meeting required, penthouse, 7 p.m. tonight." I sent it to David. No explanation, no details, just the time and place. My office phone rang again. This time it was the front desk. "Ms. Chen, your mother-in-law is in the lobby. She's asking to come up. She seems upset." "She doesn't have clearance," I said. "She's saying there's been a mistake with the system." "There's no mistake," I said. "If she needs to speak with me, she can wait in the lobby until I'm available." "Understood." I hung up and stood, walking over to the wall safe hidden behind a piece of abstract art. I entered the code, my birthday, a date David had forgotten for the past 2 years. Inside was a stack of documents. The postnuptial agreement David had signed 18 months ago, thinking it was routine estate planning paperwork. The lease agreement for the penthouse, which was in my name only. The employment contract that classified David as a contracted consultant, not a partner. I had built a legal firewall around my assets years ago, not because I predicted this exact situation, but because I understood that protection was always necessary. I learned that lesson early, watching other women in my industry lose half their wealth in divorces to men who contributed nothing. I gathered the documents and placed them in my briefcase. Then I sat back down at my desk and waited. The sun was starting to lower over the harbor, casting long shadows across the office floor. My phone kept buzzing. Patricia calling, David calling. A text from Ashley. "Hey, is David okay? He's not answering." I silenced the phone and placed it face down on the desk. Then I waited. At 6:45 p.m., I took the elevator down to the parking garage. My car was where I always left it, in the spot closest to the private elevator. I didn't drive it often. Most days I just rode the elevator from the garage directly to my office and back. But tonight, I wanted the walk. I wanted the time to think. The garage was quiet. The lighting was dimmed for evening mode, and my footsteps echoed against the concrete. I passed the empty space where David's car had been parked. There was a small oil stain on the ground, a reminder that the lease was almost up anyway. I had been planning to return it next month. Now I wouldn't have to bother with the paperwork. I took the elevator up to the penthouse. The doors opened directly into the foyer. The space was exactly as I had designed it 5 years ago. Floor-to-ceiling windows, clean lines, minimal furniture, everything intentional. Patricia had always hated it. She said it looked cold, sterile, like a hotel lobby. She wanted curtains, rugs, decorative pillows, things that would make it feel lived in. I never changed it. This was my space. It wasn't supposed to feel like anyone else's home. David and Patricia were already there, sitting on the white sofa near the windows. Patricia had a glass of wine in her hand, something from the bottle I had been saving. David was pacing, his tie loosened, his shirt wrinkled. He looked like he had been sweating. "Finally," he said when he saw me. "Lexi, what the hell is going on? I've been trying to reach you all afternoon." I set my briefcase down on the dining table and took off my jacket. "I got your messages," I said. "Then why didn't you answer?" "I was working." Patricia stood up, setting the wine glass down hard on the side table. "This is unacceptable, Rebecca. You humiliated me in front of important people today. The card was declined. Declined. Do you have any idea how that looked?" "I know exactly how it looked," I said. I walked past them to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. The tap was filtered, and the water came out cold and clear. I took a sip and turned back to face them. "Sit down," I said. David stopped pacing. "Excuse me?" "Both of you, sit down." Patricia's face flushed red. "I don't appreciate being ordered around in my son's home." "This isn't his home," I said. "It's mine, and if you want to have this conversation, you'll sit down." There was a pause. David looked at his mother, then back at me. Something in my tone must have registered, because he sat. Patricia followed, reluctantly, her mouth pressed into a thin line. I stayed standing. I took another sip of water, then set the glass down on the counter. "I'm going to show you something," I said. I walked over to my briefcase and pulled out my tablet. I connected it to the screen mounted on the wall, the one we used for movie nights that never actually happened. The security footage loaded. The timestamp showed today's date, 1:53 p.m. The camera angle was from inside the boutique. Patricia and Ashley were sitting on a velvet bench, leaning close together. The audio was clear. As soon as Rebecca is out, Patricia's voice came through the speakers, sharp and conspiratorial. We'll move you into the penthouse. It needs a woman's touch. Rebecca has it looking like a doctor's office. You can redecorate however you want. Ashley nodded, her eyes bright. And if we need money for lawyers? We'll sell some of the heirlooms, Patricia said. The emerald set alone should get us 40 or 50,000, enough to make sure she doesn't get a cent. I paused the video. The image froze on Patricia's face, mid-sentence, her expression smug and certain. David's face had gone pale. He was staring at the screen, his mouth slightly open. Patricia had gone completely still. That, I said, keeping my voice calm, was recorded this afternoon, about 20 minutes before your card was declined. Patricia recovered first. She stood up, her hands shaking. That was a private conversation. You had no right to record that. It was recorded by the building's security system, I said. A system I own, in a store I lease to. There's no expectation of privacy in a commercial space. You're taking it out of context, she said, her voice rising. I was joking. Ashley and I were just talking. We weren't serious. You were planning to sell my property to fund a legal case against me, I said. That doesn't sound like a joke. David finally found his voice. Mom, what is she talking about? What heirlooms? I turned off the screen and opened the briefcase again. I pulled out a small velvet box and set it on the table. Inside were the emerald earrings and necklace Patricia had given me on our wedding day. The ones she said had been in the Chen family for 4 generations. These? I said, opening the box. Patricia's eyes locked onto the jewelry. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Relief, maybe. Or greed. Those belong to the family, she said. You have no right to take them. They belong to me, I said. You gave them to me as a wedding gift. But more importantly, they're fake. David stood up. What? I picked up the necklace and held it up to the light. Cubic zirconia set in silver-plated alloy. I bought them 5 years ago for $400. Patricia's face went white. Your mother pawned the real emeralds in 2001, I continued, looking directly at her. I found out before the wedding. I had these made so you wouldn't be embarrassed, Patricia. I let you keep your story. I let you play the role of the elegant matriarch with a legacy to pass down. I set the necklace back in the box. The sound it made was light, cheap, nothing like the weight of real stones. Everything you think you have, I said, pulling out the employment contract and setting it on the table, is something I gave you. David picked up the contract. His hands were shaking slightly. I watched him scan the first page, then the second. He stopped at the signature line, his own signature, dated from 2 years ago. This says I'm a consultant, he said quietly. That's correct. Not a partner? No, not a partner. He looked up at me, confusion and something else, maybe fear, crossing his face. But you told me I was part of the business. You said we were building this together. I said you could attend events with me, I corrected. I said you could use the title of associate director for networking purposes. I never said you owned anything. Patricia stood up again, her voice sharp. This is a scam. You tricked him into signing something he didn't understand. Any lawyer will tear this apart. He signed it in front of a notary, I said. He had 2 weeks to review it. He chose not to read it. I pulled out another document, this one thicker. This is the post-nuptial agreement David signed 18 months ago. It clarifies that all assets acquired before and during the marriage remain separately owned. It also specifies that the penthouse, the car, and all business holdings are mine exclusively. David set the contract down. He looked at his mother, then back at me. Why are you doing this? I'm not doing anything, I said. I'm simply clarifying what's already true. But why now? His voice cracked slightly. What changed? I walked over to the table and sat down across from them. I folded my hands in front of me, keeping my posture straight, my expression neutral. What changed, I said, is that I saw the footage. I heard the plan, and I realized that I had made a significant miscalculation. What miscalculation? Patricia demanded. I thought paying you would make you loyal, I said. I thought providing a comfortable life would be enough. I thought you understood the arrangement, but you didn't. You convinced yourselves that you earned this, that you deserved it, that it was yours by right, not by my generosity. David leaned back in his chair. He looked exhausted. Lexi, I never said that. I never claimed I built the business. No, I agreed. You just let other people say it. You let your mother tell everyone you were the developer. You let Ashley believe you owned this building. You never corrected them because you liked the way it sounded. He didn't respond. He just stared at the table. Patricia, however, was not finished. You can't just throw us out. We have rights. David is your husband. I'm family. You can't erase us like we're nothing. I'm not erasing you, I said. I'm terminating your employment and revoking your building access. Those are two separate administrative actions. I pulled out the final set of documents. Eviction notices, printed on official letterhead, notarized that afternoon. This penthouse is owned by a trust. My trust. You are listed as guests, not residents. As of 5 p.m. today, your guest privileges have been revoked. You have until 8 p.m. to remove your personal belongings. Patricia grabbed the notice and read it, her face going from red to almost purple. This is illegal. You can't evict us with 3 hours' notice. I can when you're classified as guests, not tenants, I said. There's no lease. There's no rental agreement. You live here at my discretion, and my discretion has ended. Where are we supposed to go? David asked. His voice was quiet, almost childlike. That's not my concern, I said. But if you need a recommendation, there's a motel off Highway 9, the Bluebird Inn. It's clean and affordable. A motel? Patricia's voice was shrill now. You're sending us to a motel? I'm not sending you anywhere, I said. I'm simply informing you that you can't stay here. David stood up. He walked over to the window and stared out at the city. The lights were starting to come on, building by building, creating a pattern against the darkening sky. I loved you, he said, not turning around. No, I said. You loved what I could provide, and now I'm not providing it anymore. He turned back to face me. What about Ashley? What about her? Are you doing this because of her? I considered the question. It was fair, in a way. Ashley was the catalyst, the visible proof of the arrangement breaking down, but she wasn't the reason. Ashley is irrelevant, I said. She's a symptom, not the cause. If it wasn't her, it would have been someone else eventually. You were always going to test the boundaries. You were always going to want more than what we agreed to. We didn't agree to this, he said, gesturing around the penthouse. We didn't agree to you controlling everything. Yes, we did, I said. You just didn't read the paperwork. The elevator chimed. 2 security officers stepped out, both people I had worked with for years. They were professional, calm, carrying empty boxes. Ms. Chen, the lead officer said, nodding to me. We're here to assist with the transition. Patricia looked at them, then at me. You called security? On your own family? You're not my family, I said. You're people who lived in my building under conditions that no longer apply. The officer set the boxes down. You have until 8 p.m. to gather personal items. Anything left behind will be stored for 30 days, then disposed of. David didn't move. He just stood there, looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Maybe he was. Maybe for 3 years he had been looking at a version of me he invented, the grateful wife, the woman who needed him. And now that version was gone, and he didn't know what to do with the reality. Patricia grabbed a box and marched toward the bedroom. I heard drawers opening, clothes being thrown around. David followed slowly, like he was walking through water. I stayed at the table. I didn't watch them pack. I didn't supervise. I just sat there, drinking my water, waiting. 20 minutes later, they were standing by the elevator with 3 boxes each. Patricia's were overflowing, clothes hanging over the edges. David's were neater, methodical. He had always been organized with small things, even when he couldn't manage the larger picture. Patricia was crying now, though the tears looked more like anger than sadness. Her mascara had run slightly, leaving dark smudges under her eyes. "This is cruel," she said. "You're cruel. You always have been. Cold and heartless." "I'm practical," I said. "You're vindictive. I'm resolving a problem." She turned to David. "Say something. Don't just stand there. This is your wife. Fight for your marriage." David looked at me. His eyes were red, but he wasn't crying. "Would it matter?" he asked. "Would what matter?" "If I fought, if I apologized, if I promised to change." I thought about the question. It was fair. It deserved an honest answer. "No," I said. "It wouldn't matter. Because this isn't about what you did today. It's about what you were always willing to do. The footage just made it visible." He nodded slowly. "I understand." Patricia wasn't satisfied with that. "You don't understand anything. She's manipulating you. She's making you think you're the problem when she's the one who created this whole sick arrangement. She bought you like you were a piece of furniture." "You're right," I said. "I did." The admission seemed to shock her into silence. I looked at my life and decided I needed certain things. I continued. Stability, appearance, social legitimacy. I paid for those things. I was clear about the terms, even if I didn't say them out loud. David agreed to those terms by accepting the money, the car, the apartment, the lifestyle. He could have said no at any point. He could have gotten a job, built his own career, contributed equally. He chose not to. David set his boxes down. "That's not fair. You never gave me the chance to contribute. You controlled everything." "I controlled everything because it was mine to control," I said. "If you wanted to build something, you could have built it outside of my company. You had time. You had resources. You chose to be comfortable instead." "So this is my fault?" His voice was rising now. "I'm the villain because I trusted you? Because I thought we were partners?" "You're not the villain," I said. "You're just not the person I needed you to be, and I'm not the person you wanted me to be. That's not a moral failing. It's just incompatibility." Patricia picked up one of her boxes. "You'll regret this. When you're alone in this empty apartment, you'll realize what you threw away. You'll realize that money can't buy happiness." "Maybe," I said, "but it can buy security, and right now, I value that more." The security officer stepped forward. "It's 7:52. We need to complete the transition." David picked up his boxes. He walked toward the elevator, then stopped. "What about Ashley?" he asked again. "What about her? Are you going to tell her? About the money? About everything?" I considered it. Ashley was probably waiting for his call right now, expecting an update, maybe planning where they would go next. She thought she was getting a wealthy boyfriend, a penthouse, a lifestyle. She had no idea she was getting a man with 3 boxes of clothes and no income. "No," I said. "She'll figure it out on her own." He nodded. Then he stepped into the elevator. Patricia followed, still crying, still glaring at me. The doors started to close. "Rebecca," David said, his hand catching the door. "I really did love you, at least at the beginning." "I know," I said, "but love isn't a currency. It doesn't pay rent." The doors closed. I watched the display panel count down the floors. 82, 81, 80, all the way to the lobby. Then the system chimed. Access denied. David had tried to come back up. The biometric scanner had rejected him. My phone buzzed. A text from Ashley. "Hey, is everything okay? David's not answering? Did something happen with the building?" I typed back, "He's no longer employed here. He'll explain." Then I blocked the number. I walked to the windows and looked out at the city. The harbor lights were reflecting off the water, creating patterns that shifted with the waves. Somewhere down there, David and Patricia were getting into a car, probably arguing about where to go, what to do next. Patricia would try to rally, to come up with a plan. David would be quiet, processing. They would go to Ashley's apartment, I guessed. David would tell her some version of the story, probably one where I was irrational, where he was blindsided. Ashley would listen, maybe comfort him. Then she would start asking questions. Where will you stay? What about money? What about the car? And when she realized there were no good answers, she would do exactly what she was built to do. She would leave. Maybe not immediately. Maybe she would give it a week, let him think she was supportive. But eventually, the reality would set in. David, without money, without status, without access, was just a man in his late 30s with no career and no prospects. I turned away from the window. The penthouse felt larger now, emptier. Their noise was gone. The constant hum of Patricia's complaints, David's half-finished projects, the television he always left on, all of it was gone. Some people would call this loneliness. I called it space. I walked to the kitchen and poured the rest of Patricia's wine down the sink. Then I washed the glass and put it back in the cabinet. I straightened the cushions on the sofa. I picked up a magazine Patricia had left on the coffee table and threw it in the recycling. Then I sat down at the dining table and opened my laptop. I had work to finish. A proposal for a new development project, zoning meetings next week, contractor bids to review. The work didn't stop just because my personal life had imploded. Actually, that wasn't quite right. My personal life hadn't imploded. I had dismantled it. Intentionally, carefully, the same way I would demolish a building that was no longer structurally sound. I worked for 2 hours until my eyes started to blur. Then I closed the laptop and went to bed. The mattress felt different without David's weight on the other side. Not worse, just different. I fell asleep quickly. I didn't dream. The next morning, I woke up at 5:30 a.m., the same time I always did. The penthouse was silent. No sound of David in the shower, no smell of coffee he never quite made correctly, no Patricia calling at 6 a.m. to complain about something she saw on the news. Just silence. I made my own coffee. I sat at the kitchen counter and checked my phone. There were 17 missed calls, 12 from Patricia, 3 from David, 2 from a number I didn't recognize. No voicemails, just the calls, desperate and unanswered. There was one email sent at 3:47 a.m. from David's personal account. The subject line read, "Please read this." I opened it. "Rebecca, I know you probably won't respond to this, but I need to try. I've been up all night thinking about everything you said. You're right about most of it. I did let Mom speak for me. I did enjoy the lifestyle without questioning where it came from. I convinced myself I was contributing in other ways, being supportive, being present, but I see now that presence isn't the same as partnership. I don't know what happens next. I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing. Ashley won't return my calls. Mom is staying with her sister in Newark and won't stop crying. I'm at the Bluebird Inn, room 12, like you suggested. It smells like cigarettes, and the shower doesn't drain properly. I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. I'm telling you because I want you to know that I finally understand what you were paying for. And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I hope you find someone who actually deserves you. David." I read it twice. Then I closed the email and deleted it. Not out of anger, but out of finality. There was nothing to respond to. He understood now, and that was enough. I didn't need his apology. I didn't need closure. I just needed him gone, and he was. I finished my coffee and got dressed. Navy suit, white blouse, low heels. I pulled my hair back and applied minimal makeup. Then I took the elevator down to my office on the 74th floor. My assistant, Marcus, was already at his desk. He looked up when I walked in. "Morning, Ms. Chen. I heard there was some activity last night. Security filed a report. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I said. "Just a personnel transition." He nodded. Marcus had worked for me for 6 years. He knew when not to ask follow-up questions. "There's a staff meeting at 9, he said. "And the Riverside project team wants to present the updated renderings at 10:30. Perfect. Can you also pull the termination paperwork for David Chen? I need to file it with HR today." "Already done," Marcus said, handing me a folder. "I processed it first thing this morning. His final paycheck will be direct deposited on Friday, per the standard 2-week notice period outlined in his contract." He didn't give 2 weeks' notice. "No, but the contract stipulates that the company will honor the notice period regardless. It protects us from wrongful termination claims." I smiled slightly. Good thinking. "I also took the liberty of updating the building access logs," he continued. "David Chen and Patricia Chen have been fully removed from all systems. Security has been notified. If either of them attempts to enter the building, they'll be treated as unauthorized visitors." "Thank you, Marcus." He hesitated. "For what it's worth, I think you handled it well, professionally." I looked at him. Marcus was 31, sharp, efficient. He had been with me through 3 major projects and never once questioned my decisions. "You knew?" I asked. "I knew David didn't do much actual work," he said carefully. "I assumed there was a reason for that. It wasn't my place to comment." "And now?" "Now I think you made the right call, for the company and for yourself." I nodded and went into my office. The meeting at 9 went smoothly. The Riverside project was on schedule. The renderings at 10:30 were excellent. By noon, I had reviewed and approved 3 contractor bids and signed off on the final design for a mixed-use development in Brooklyn. At 1:15 p.m., my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. "Rebecca Chen." "Ms. Chen, this is Detective Laura Martinez with the NYPD. I'm calling regarding a complaint filed by Patricia Chen. She's alleging unlawful eviction and financial fraud. I'd like to ask you a few questions." I leaned back in my chair. "Of course. What would you like to know?" "Mrs. Chen claims you evicted her and her son from your residence with no notice and froze their access to joint bank accounts. Is that accurate?" "Partially," I said. "I revoked guest privileges for 2 individuals who were residing in a property I own. They were not tenants. There was no lease agreement. As for the bank accounts, I initiated a fraud alert after discovering unauthorized use of a corporate credit card. The accounts were flagged by the bank's security system, not frozen by me personally." "Do you have documentation supporting this?" "Yes. I can provide the property trust documents, guest access agreements, and the corporate card usage logs. I can also provide security footage showing the unauthorized activity that triggered the fraud alert." There was a pause. "Security footage?" "Yes. The boutique where the card was used is located in a building I own. All commercial spaces have standard security monitoring. I'd be happy to share the relevant footage with your office." Another pause. "Mrs. Chen also mentioned family heirlooms that she claims you stole." "The items in question were given to me as a wedding gift," I said. "I have photographs from the wedding showing the transfer. I also have the receipt for the items, which I purchased and gave to Mrs. Chen to give to me, as the original heirlooms had been sold years prior. If she'd like to file a claim, I can provide all documentation to prove ownership." The detective's tone shifted slightly. "It sounds like you have everything well documented." "I do." "May I ask why you went to such lengths to document everything?" "I'm a developer detective. Documentation is how I protect my investments, personal and professional." "I see." There was some typing in the background. "I'll need to collect the materials you mentioned. Can you send them to my office by end of day?" "I can have them couriered within the hour." "That would be helpful. Thank you for your cooperation, Ms. Chen. Of course. I hung up and called my attorney. 20 minutes later, a complete documentation package was on its way to the detective's office. By 4 p.m., I received an email from Detective Martinez confirming receipt and stating that the matter was closed, pending no further evidence of wrongdoing. Patricia would get the news by tonight. The complaint dismissed, the narrative collapsed, the last thread of leverage gone. I worked until 7, then took the elevator back up to the penthouse. I ordered takeout, Thai food from the place on the corner that David never liked. I ate slowly, sitting at the counter, looking out at the city as the sun set. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Ashley. I don't know what game you're playing, but David is a good person. You didn't deserve him. I stared at the message for a moment. Then I typed back, "You're welcome to him." I blocked that number too. 3 weeks later, I was standing in the same office, looking out at the same view. The harbor was calm that morning, the water reflecting the pale blue sky. A container ship was moving slowly toward the port, steady and purposeful. I had spent those 3 weeks exactly the way I wanted to, working, sleeping well, eating meals I chose. The penthouse stayed clean because there was no one there to leave messes. The silence, which I thought might feel heavy, felt light instead. I hadn't heard from David. Patricia had stopped calling after the police dismissed her complaint. I heard through Marcus that David had moved back to his college town, staying with a friend from his fraternity days. Ashley had posted photos on social media with a new man, someone who actually owned the convertible he drove. The Riverside project broke ground. The Brooklyn development got final approval. I hired 2 new architects, both women, both talented. I didn't hire anyone to replace David because there was nothing to replace. On a Thursday afternoon, I got a call from my lawyer. "Rebecca, I wanted to give you a heads up. David's attorney reached out. They're not contesting the post-nup. He's willing to sign the divorce papers without negotiation." "What does he want?" I asked. "Nothing. He just wants it finished." "All right. I'll have the papers drawn up by next week." I hung up and turned back to my desk. There was a folder there, one I had been avoiding. It was labeled Sterling Project, San Francisco. My firm had been approached about a development opportunity on the West Coast. Big project, significant investment, the kind of thing that would require relocating for at least a year. I had hesitated because of David, because of the illusion of a marriage that tied me to this city. But that illusion was gone now. I opened the folder and started reading. That evening, I went down to the lobby. There was a new cafe that had opened last month, one of the tenants I had approved. I ordered a coffee and sat by the window, watching people come and go. A woman walked in, maybe late 20s, well-dressed, carrying a portfolio case. She ordered a latte and sat down across from me, close enough that I could hear her phone conversation. "No, Mom, I told you," she was saying, her voice strained. "He's supportive. He encourages my work. It's just, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm carrying everything. The rent, the bills, his student loans. He says he's looking for jobs, but it's been 8 months." She paused, listening. "I know you like him. Everyone likes him. That's the problem. He's charming and sweet, and everyone thinks I'm lucky. But I'm exhausted. And when I bring it up, he makes me feel like I'm being ungrateful, like I'm the problem for keeping track." I took a sip of my coffee and looked out the window. I didn't know her. I didn't know her situation, but I recognized the tone, the doubt creeping in around the edges of a choice she wasn't ready to question yet. She ended the call and sat there, staring at her phone. Then she opened her portfolio and pulled out architectural drawings. I could see them from where I sat. Clean lines, thoughtful design, the work of someone who knew what she was doing. I stood up and walked over. "Excuse me," I said. "I don't mean to intrude, but I couldn't help noticing your work. Are you an architect?" She looked up, startled. "Yes, I'm trying to be. I just finished my licensing exams." "Congratulations," I said. "That's not easy." Are you looking for work? I am, actually. Do you know anyone who's hiring? I handed her my card. I'm always looking for good people. Send me your portfolio. She took the card, her eyes widening slightly when she read it. You're Rebecca Chen? You designed this building? I did. I studied this project in school. It's brilliant. Thank you, I said. Send me your work. If it's as good as what I just saw, we should talk. I walked back to the elevator. I didn't know if she would send the portfolio. I didn't know if she would leave the man who was weighing her down. But I gave her the option. The rest was up to her. That night, I sat at my dining table with a glass of wine, the good bottle I had been saving. I opened my laptop and pulled up the San Francisco proposal. The project was ambitious. It would take 2 years, maybe 3. It would require everything I had. I clicked accept on the proposal and sent it back to the client. Then I closed the laptop and walked to the window. The city was lit up below me, every building holding its own stories, its own careful constructions and necessary demolitions. I had torn something down. Now I was ready to build something new. I picked up my phone and took a photo of the view, just the lights and the water and the open sky. I didn't post it anywhere. I just saved it to a folder marked before. Because this wasn't an ending. It was a foundation. If you've ever had to clear out what wasn't working to make room for what could be, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Drop a comment and let me know you're part of this community. 2 more stories are coming up next, and I think you'll want to hear them. Thanks for listening.